absent.
Okay, I don't, do you have something that you wanted to talk about during oral communications, or? Okay, just checking. So it doesn't seem like there are any oral communications, so we'll move on to agenda changes, requests, or deletions. And
Yeah, I was going to make a suggestion. There were a number of emails about the proposed Verizon antenna, and I think we ought to at least discuss that, what the Library Commission and maybe the library want to do when it is formally proposed to the ARB and whoever, if we want to do anything at all. I think we ought to at least discuss it.
so I think we should definitely discuss it. I don't think it's possible for us to take any action at this meeting because it wasn't on the agenda.
I'm not suggesting taking action. I'm just saying, talk about what our concerns might be and what we might want to put forward. It's not an official proposal yet, so we don't have anything we can really say we love or we hate. So it's just kind of getting ahead of the game and saying, well, we're going to be looking at this, and when it comes up, these are the things we're going to be considering. That's all.
Maybe you can weigh in just.
So my understanding is that the proposal or the permits were pulled a couple of years ago. So this has been an ongoing project, and that it will, officially come before, like you said, ARB and the other groups. So I don't know if, certainly, yeah, you could have a discussion, or you may want to bring it up under reports that or during as part of the correspondence discussion, because that's where you receive the information as well under my report. So that might be a place for it.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that we should talk about it sooner than later, but because we can't take an action on it, we should maybe try to make a brief, just straw poll of, what we think the issues might be, and then bring it up later as an actual agenda item that
it's really my point was trying to get the issues on the table, because something that we don't even think about may pop up when it goes to the ARB, and something that we're concerned about may never show up because it never occurs. But anything we can think of that we want to vet now, I think is worth doing.
Okay. And the other thing is, depending on the public interest in this, I think it would be, obviously having it on the agenda allows them to come and voice their opinion too. So
there was also a lot more correspondence that happened separately, so there may be additional information that you want to consider as well.
Okay.
So
why don't we make a brief discussion? I don't know if we should call it item 6, just so there is a thing on the agenda specifically for it, but really we should really be very high level and we can't get into taking any action as a LEC.
That was my intent.
Okay. So let's call it item 6, discuss the cell tower. If there is time. Okay, so do we need, I don't know if we need I don't think we need a vote for that. So let's get to business. The first item is the approval of draft minutes from the August 29th meeting. Are there any motions or changes?
I just have a quick question because I'm not.
Can you make sure
Okay.
you aim it towards yourself?
Yes. I just have a quick question because I mentioned last meeting that we really hope the Orange Boy could have some results, in-depth results, instead of just numbers. So could you just put that in this draft?
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion in regards to approving this with that change?
I motion that we approve with Sheena's adjustment.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So item 2 is the update on library building projects and library plans for operational services. And
So Matt Rashke's
okay,
here from
Matt,
Public Works.
You don't look like Phil.
No. No. So Matt will be representing Public Works, and Diane Lai actually prepared the cover memo, which I don't see in my packet.
Oh, it wasn't included because you said you might present it or not.
Oh, okay, well.
Should I go?
No, that's okay. Go ahead and,
All right, so we have Matt
Matt can talk about the buildings.
Matt Rush, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yes, I'm Matt Roshke. I'm a senior engineer with Public Works. Phil Boble, unfortunately, has recently had back surgery, so he's recovering at home, and we all wish him very well. But I was able to observe his presentation to the Library Bond Oversight Committee, I think a week and a half ago, and I'm going to kind of recreate that for you tonight and give you an update on the status of the Mitchell Park Library and Community Center construction. Progress is still continuing, and it continues to have some challenges, but it's really coming along. Most of the exterior stone has been completed, and the terrace pavers are being installed. Nearly all of the site work is done, and the exterior art pieces have been installed. And carpets in nearly all the spaces. Shelving installation is nearly complete, and the ceilings are all in. And we hope to have the automated material handling system in on November 11th. It's on site. It just needs to be assembled and connected and tested. And the partitions for the systems furniture have been installed and are wired for power and data. And we're just moving as quickly as we can in light of the situation with the contractor. So what I have a series of photo slides that Phil has been preparing in weekly updates that he's been keeping us all informed of the progress. So I'm just going to go through those and highlight what they are. These are wood ceiling panels. This is kind of starting near the end of August, so it's kind of like filling in the gaps from since your last meeting to now. So the wood panels up along here were installed in late August. In the wood slats, it was a bit of a challenge with the slope ceiling because it's actually not connected to the wall at this point, so it's kind of free hanging, and there were seismic issues related to the building inspection. So they got that worked out, and were able to start installing this ceiling. You can see where their workers are up there working on the ceiling, and there's a lot of controls for the building. It's one of the workers there. And some of the first books arrived. That's the architect from Group 4, David Sturgis, reading his favorite book. And building inspector, George Hoyt. I think he has a special knack for George the monkey, same name. Some of the granite, see this granite slabs in the courtyard. There's the prominent oak in the middle of the courtyard. They're a couple 100 pounds each. Some of the staff cubicle in the process of being assembled there. You can see it's starting to look like a finished building, really. The easy to wash resinous floor that's going on the staff side of the cafe being installed. It's an example of some of the building signage inside for wayfinding. some other systems furniture, and some of the what they called this, the fun paint. This is later covered with wood slats that go vertically, but that was installed in early September. And some of the example of the doorway, one of the doors in the library. And so one of the challenges we've had, there was a leak that needed to be dried out. This is where they're blowing air into the systems under the terrazzo, so that had to be dried out. That's near the entryway. Then in mid-September we had the christening of the basketball court, where Jeremy Lin showed up and played one-on-one with the mayor. They had some fun. Phil really enjoyed that. I believe he may have coached Jeremy Lin when his son was also playing basketball. So, yeah. And there's some of the granite stairwell going in. The glass railing looks very nice. This got out of order. That's the other Jeremy Lin. They had a group of school children there to welcome Jeremy Lin and get the sign for Jeremy Lin played there. Much of the paving outside is now complete. This picture there. Some of the backing, and you can see that they're getting ready for. I believe that I think a digital sign goes in that location. My slides seem to be getting a little out of order. This is an example of one of the challenges we had. They had to remove some defective work. The sliding glass doors were not right. So this is. You can see they had to install a temporary partition wall to block that off, so that they could remove the glass doors and reinstall those. There's one of the art pieces. The owl bollards have been installed, and then were quickly covered with blankets to protect them. But they're quite nice. Monique, I think, had one in her office for a while. But, they're, I think, now filled with concrete to make them more secure. Much heavier. It's an example of the wood slats that are in very nice architectural feature throughout the building, and that's where you can see the fun paint is below that. There's an example of some of the landscaping that's already looking pretty good and maturing, and this is the permeable paver at the parking stalls that is part of the stormwater controls for the whole project. Allows drainage to percolate into the ground rather than running off into the storm drain. The Beasley piece has been installed. Here it's being lifted off the crane and installed. And there you can see Mr. Beasley in the center of the photo with some of the crew members. It's quite a large piece. I believe these are actually part of it, but the prominent arch is in the middle. Phil has actually helped motivate the crews by creating these little awards that he gives out to people that are going above and beyond and finding and fixing problems. And, so that's a little motivation. This is part of the other art piece, the initial test installation. It's got a little out of order here. Who's the artist? Forgetting. Stoller, the Stoller art piece, and that's on the final piece extends in the exterior of the front entry and into this part of just inside the front entry. And here you can see some of the slope ceiling that's finished, and that was one of the challenges, and now that's in. You can see the shelving being installed, and there's the sliding glass doors that I had mentioned earlier are now fully installed and correct this time. They had some issues with the staff shower that did not pass the water leak test initially, so that was a challenge, and they've got that now fully corrected and tested, and it passed. There's some of the pedestal pavers that are being installed. That was also a challenge to get the contractor on board with the installation methodology, but you can see it's quite raised up over the base in this patio area. It's an interesting design. I was actually surprised by that. Some of the flat ceilings and skylights. They're still, as you can see, we're still not quite 100%. We're still waiting for some panels and things like that. And there's the rest of the staller pieces now. I believe it's fully installed now. That's the exterior, and there's the interior. And this was the piece, I think, that was initially put up as the test and still needed to go in after this picture was taken. So that's the Mitchell Park Library project. I also have an update on Main Library, but I don't know if you want to split it up and take questions on Mitchell at this point, and then I'll go into the Main Library after that.
It looks like you still don't have all the utilities in functional. Like you showed, the shower for staff isn't completed yet. How close are we to having all the utilities actually working?
Very close. Our next major milestone and goal is to get temporary certificate of occupancy, and that will allow staff to start moving in and getting situated. And I believe that the plumbing is in. It was just that particular shower stall had an issue with the tile leaking and not being fully watertight, so that had to be corrected. So I believe the electric and the building systems are online. It's been brought up to speed.
Well, I agree. We could open the library for the public without having that staff operation, but it's still annoying not to have the whole thing done 2 years ago.
Yes, very much.
Just a quick questions. I would like to know how many percentage has been completed, and how many percentage that we still need to work on.
Not the best to answer that, but I'd put it between 98 and 99%. It's in the final stretch. It's punch list items and getting all the inspections completed and finalized so that it's safe to occupy.
So you're saying that almost 99% of construction has been completed?
That's my opinion.
So will the building be ready at the end of this year?
For sure, that I think it will be ready for move-in of the staff, and exactly what date that is, we're still uncertain. But the goal is temporary certificate of occupancy in November. And then we'll have a move-in period where staff needs to move in, all the furniture and books need to be moved in, and that all depends on when the occupancy certificate is actually provided.
So you're saying that the books and staff can move in November?
That's the goal.
Okay.
So, yeah, let me make a comment on that, because we need to wait for the certificate of occupancy. And so we will have to, I mean, and we're not sure when that is. We believe that it will be in November, but again, they have to,
There are
finalizing certain tests, there are, punch list items that need to take place, and all of that, the timing of that is up to Public Works, the contractor. And Matt, again, does not work on this project. He's filling in, so the specific details are not anything that he's necessarily working with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, the fire sprinklers still need to be approved. And as things start to, like the systems furniture go in, then the fire inspectors go in and see, and then they can really see, there's a sprinkler that needs to be moved a few feet over, and those are the kind of things that are in process right now. So we're trying to work through it very quickly.
So you're saying that the building, I mean, all the construction will be get ready, and this time all we need is just the certificate or the permit from City of Palo Alto?
Temporary certificate of occupancy that would allow it to be, occupied. At that point, there's still going to be things that need to be, some finishes may not be complete. There may be wall panels or there'll still be work to be done, but it basically the building department and the fire department would have certified that it's safe to occupy.
Thank you.
That's the step we're shooting for right now.
So there's a difference between the temporary and the regular certificate of occupancy, and so you're just trying to accelerate the move-in date, essentially.
Correct. Then it would be, the final step would be complete sign-off of the building permit, and
okay.
And
Was that part of the original plan to get a temporary one just to get move-in faster, or this is just sort of a let's try to get it done as quickly as possible?
No, actually, that's what happened at Downtown Library. When I arrived here to work, I was the first person who moved in. There was still construction going on, but we had already received a certificate of temporary occupancy or temporary certificate, so that it was safe for, civilians to be in the building, essentially.
Okay.
And, but there would be people walking around, touching up paint, fixing light fixtures, moving things, and doing, other construction kind of tasks.
I have another question, but just to answer his, it's a two-story building. The library is a two-story building. And so you mentioned there was a photo of a leak that was being fixed, and that's kind of worrisome just because I'm wondering, now the floor panels are all open, and it was probably not difficult to see something like that. I'm just wondering if something like that happens again, are there systems that would detect a leak without it flooding, creating a swimming pool under the floor?
Did I miss it there?
You don't need to show the photo, but I'm just wondering if there are systems there that would show some drop in water pressure or actually have moisture sensors. Do you know if there's something like that?
I don't think that was specifically designed into it. It is a risk. That's why they do pressure test on the piping that's installed. I don't unfortunately know the nature of this particular leak, if it was something that was damaged by the installation of something else and caused the leak. But it was discovered and they had to dry it out.
Okay. Was it an ongoing thing and they fixed it, or was it just? If you can't answer, it's okay. I'm just wondering. That's a little worrisome considering the.
We can follow up and get
Okay.
information to you. Sure.
Go ahead.
So, Monique, I have a quick question. So, do you think that the library can soft open at the end of this year? Do you think?
It all depends on when we're able to move in.
So, if we can move in November, so how long will it take to settle down and everything?
Well, honestly, I've estimated at 6 weeks is what it will take to move in. So it depends, again, on when we're able to move in, how quickly things get tested, how we're able to, work with the network, work with the computers, work with, the AMH system, all of that kind of stuff, get trained on all of the other systems in the building, the temperature controls, things like that. So, that it would be ideal. And again, we have no dates. So.
Okay, thank you.
Let me follow up on that. From your experience with downtown, if you have a temporary occupancy permit where staff can move in and start setting up the staff area and doing things, would you still be able to do things like make sure the bookcases are installed properly and start putting books on the shelves and things like that, or we'd have to wait until they're completely done? I'm trying to get an idea whether this 6 weeks period you're talking about to get in and get the library up and running would include doing these things even if they're done in, say, in the last 2 or 3 weeks rather than the first couple. So I'm trying to get an idea what the schedule might be under, since this is Mitchell Park, worst case conditions.
Well, I would say that from the experience with downtown is a completely different animal since it was a renovation, and the scale is so much different. We expect, we expect the construction to be completed before we move in. So all of the shelves are in. And again, that's not, the shelves are not up to us. We work with the moving companies to move items in, but we're merging 4 different storage areas of materials. The temporary Mitchell Park, items that are in storage at temporary Mitchell Park, items that were stored as part of the main move because there were Mitchell Park items there, and then brand new materials that we've been working with the vendor, and the vendor has been storing for us because as we've changed the date. So merging all 4 of those collections to have the library ready to go, that activity, and we can discuss this when we go over my stuff, we have estimated will take probably 2 to 3 weeks just to get the collection set up. And that's really one of the first tasks that we'll do. It's nearly all of the collection has been tagged for RFID, so we should be able to begin testing with the AMH immediately. So there's all of those kinds of things where we are working with IT to develop the images that we load onto the computers. Library staff is actually doing that. It's not an IT staff responsibility. We test the images. We work with our staff and theirs to make sure that's all ready. So that, that will require some time. So we're working on as much of what we can to prepare ahead of time. We're working on the computers now. We're working on getting, the processes worked out, having the collections tagged so that there's not a lot of that kind of prep work that we have to do. But again, until we get in, does the elevator work reliably every day? Does the AMH work reliably? There have been times in libraries where they've not had a soft opening, they've had a grand opening, and the machine broke down in the first half a day. So you want to, we really want to make sure we do a thorough job of preparing, keeping in mind that we're as anxious to get it open and functioning and operational as everyone else. So.
Actually, I've got a different question, but while we're talking about am I on? Yeah. While we're doing the transfer into Maine or into Mitchell Park, how long do we know yet that, will there be a period where temporary Mitchell Park is closed while Mitchell Park is not yet open, and do we have a guess as to how many days?
That will actually be probably the full 6 weeks. So, because the staff that we have working at temporary Mitchell Park will need to be working in the building, focused on that to get everything as open as possible. We just announced that effective November 1st, we will suspend Link Plus service again. So that will reopen as soon as Mitchell Park is able to operate, and it will be at Mitchell Park permanently. That was always part of the plan. What you're receiving here, I'm sorry that this didn't come in the packet. This is plans that we've had, and I don't know if anybody in the audience is interested, but so we are going to, but we're not sure of the date, and we don't want to jump the gun on closing the library any earlier than we would need to. So we've got, doing the closure. While we are closed at Mitchell Park, all of the branch hours throughout the rest of the system will remain the same. We will have to move the holds to another library. Likely, we will move it to Children's because that's the only place that can accommodate the holds that come from Mitchell Park. There's about 800 items that are on hold at any given time. So to have the space for that, we need to use that temporarily. We're going to work on offering the reference services that are offered at Mitchell Park at other branches, as well as adding, we still will do email and phone and everything like that. And then as soon as we close temporary Mitchell Park, we will suspend everyone's fines. No one will accrue overdue fines during the time that the library is closed. We want to encourage people to check out the books you love and keep them at home until, because that was a concern that we actually had with Maine was, I don't want this to go into storage. I love this book. And so I'm going to check it out so that it's not. If you want to check out a lot of books and keep them for that time, you won't accrue an overdue fine. We just would like you to bring it back in good condition, and we'll be happy for that. So,
would that actually make it easier to move because there's less stuff, or you think it won't have a significant?
I have no idea if it will have a significant impact. I think that any bit that anybody in Palo Alto can do to help us move in, we realize this is an unbelievably rough situation because, we recognize Maine is closed. We're operating from small facilities throughout the city, and that temporary Mitchell Park will be closed for a time. Throughout this time when we've had no space, we've done a good job of offering pop-up story times, at businesses. We've been, trying to figure out ways that we can still meet the needs of the community while not having the optimal space. So, we're looking at all kinds of opportunities to make sure that we can offer as many services as possible.
Well, I'm just thinking it as I'm sure people in the community would like to help the library open faster, and this sounds like a thing that anybody can do is just check out your favorite 10 books, and actually it'll have a physical impact on the move.
Yes.
Why not?
Why not? Absolutely.
I don't know if there's enough time to go to, you said November 1st.
No, November 1st is when Link Plus will be suspended. Both Mountain View and Sunnyvale do offer Link Plus services, and anyone would be eligible for a library card there, so they can use that resource if they need it. I know that it notes Menlo Park in here, but they do not actually offer Link Plus. So Mountain View and Sunnyvale is where we've been referring people. And the main reason for that is that in the chaos of moving, we don't want to mix their stuff in with ours. The Link Plus items, no matter what it is, if you lose it, it's a $115 fee. And so we just want to make sure that we don't get anybody stuck with a charge that isn't warranted, and that we are taking care of the materials. So, and again, since we're not quite sure of the date, we will be ready to promote that as soon as we know more.
Okay. So you are actually going to promote this as a...
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we thought about it right
I agree.
after Maine, and we thought, oh, we should have done that. That would have been great. Just had people check stuff out and keep it. So, yeah, we'll be encouraging that, and reminding people that we have Zinio for magazines, that we have, music. We have a lot of things that you can use electronically, and that, again, the other branches are open and available.
Yeah, so the grace period applies to all the branches, or
The entire
only-
library.
Entire, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, so is there any way to use the automated materials handling? Because you said that you're mixing essentially 4 sources of books. Can't you just kind of throw them all through the automated materials handling, or is there just so much material that it would take the entire 6 weeks for it to all go through?
Well, the idea of the AMH is that it sorts the books into different branches that they would be going to, not necessarily, so the Mitchell Park items, they still do need a subsort, but
Yeah.
it's mostly about where to the location where it will be returned.
Can it
And
be
then-
programmed temporarily to just sort it by, I don't know, the different genres or maybe different sections of the library?
Well, most of the stuff that's in storage is already sorted. It's not just
okay.
like when you move house and you just throw everything into a box and then you have to
Okay.
resort it. Not everything, but most of the things, and all of the things that come from the vendor are already sorted and marked. So everything's marked where it needs to go. So that piece of it
It's
is
just
not.
physically putting it on the shelf.
Just physically putting it on the shelf, which we have movers to help, and then us to go along behind and make sure that the order is actually correct.
Okay. And now that it is RFID tagged, are there technological tools that you can, like a wand that you can kind of walk across and check if there's something that's out of place, or
There are those kinds of things, yeah, right. So we'll be able to do inventory and
You won't
things
have
like
to-
that.
look at it?
No, but there are some. Doing that is sometimes a good check as well. So especially starting off.
Okay. Oh, and one last thing is, who's going to make the final call on when it will open? Who's going to say it's ready? Is that you?
You mean the building? Or
Yeah, when it can actually open. I'm not talking about the construction,
It is-
construction aside.
it is ultimately me. I mean, working with the staff, but yes, ultimately me, and probably the city manager, I would imagine.
Okay.
He gets a say in pretty much everything.
All right.
I still had a question on the construction. Matt. Are we still getting change orders from Flintco and requests for more money, or have they basically given up?
Unfortunately, I don't have details like that at this point, but I think there are some changes that are still happening as things are finalized. There's, undoubtedly.
I'm sure there's some changes they've asked for that we haven't settled on yet, but I'm just wondering if they're still bouncing even more at us. I've worked with a lot of contractors in my career, and Flintco is in a class of their own. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Yes.
I had one other question on the construction. So after that really bad rainstorm we had in September, I had done a tour just directly after that, and I know they had found some leakage from that. Has that all been remedied? That was up in the corner ceiling.
I believe they're still looking into that, but I think some of the leakage, that my understanding was because they were in the process of commissioning the building at that point. They had a number of louvers and things sealed off, to basically you're testing the HVAC system, the air handling system, and they weren't expecting that storm, and we didn't have a lot of really advanced forecast on that storm, and I don't think they had time to open up all those vents. So some of the leakage that occurred there, I think, was just due to the commissioning that was taking place.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to main library.
Very well.
Thanks.
Okay, so the main library construction started in late June. They completed the demolition work and asbestos-containing material abatement, and most of these photos are predominantly after the demolition work, but it's not quite as glamorous as the state that Mitchell's in right now, where there's really no finished materials to look at. It's the construction in progress. This is this photo is a storm drain retention basin that's dug out. You can see the storm drain pipes that feed into and out of it. There was an existing utility line that you can see here was actually the building mechanical systems that had been housed in the art center basement. Went right through this area here, and had to be cut away because it's now dug out for the storm drain basin that will be backfilled with a very permeable material that will allow the drainage from the roof and parking lot areas to soak into the soil as much as possible. Some additional photos of the storm drain system. This area is where the little parking shed was. It was a shed off to the side in the little side parking lot near the art center, and this is really where the connection drive will be constructed. Starting in November, they'll actually they have November starting in November to April to complete that work so that the gardeners aren't impacted severely, because it's outside the growing season, because it had to reconfigure a portion of the garden for that driveway connection between the art center parking lot and the main library parking lot. So that's what that looks like. Some of the storm drain installed along the side of the courtyard facing the art center. You can see how they're protecting the historical planter boxes, or what you call a round box planter. This is the basement was completely taken down to the concrete. Had to abate lead-based paint on the floor. You can see one of the new manifold that is going to be installed for the geothermal heating and cooling system. It'll be down there. You can see the main reading area with the ceiling removed. That was asbestos-containing sheetrock. And you can see there that with the plywood off, looking at the roof. And in this location, you can see workers removing lead-based paint on the structural steel so that so some additional steel reinforcement could be welded to it. We didn't remove all of the lead-based paint off the structural steel. We just removed it where the locations where the welders needed to weld to prevent lead vapor affecting the workers. So, you can see more of the roof there. It was really open inside, and here looking down on where the program room will be. This is where we had the groundbreaking ceremony. It's now being excavated and rebar formed up for the footings of the new addition. And there's some of the new mechanical systems that are going into the building through through near where the program building is going in. Also in this photo, you can see how they had to remove some of the structural concrete above the basement so that the the structural reinforcement could be improved. And so that's some of this bracing right here, where a cross brace shear structure is in the process of being welded in. There you can see some of the geothermal piping that'll go out to 49 wells in the parking lot area that are 350 feet deep, and the drilling for that will start taking place next week. This is kind of what we call the slot area between the new program room and the existing building. We have a lot of utilities in there, so that was a lot of coordination. We're very pleased with the SJ Amoroso's progress and management of the project. They're on schedule, and they're coordinating it very well with all of the trades. Here they're removing some of the existing clay tile facade and trying to save as much as possible to do any repairs that might be necessary. This is this will be near the entrance lobby, and the slot areas here, and then the new program room will be off to the right. Again, some of the you can see the rebar has been formed up for the foundations of the program room, and these structures are basically just holding in the anchor bolts that will be poured in place and will support columns up above it. And there's quite a few footings. It's a lot of rebar. And then we already the structural reinforcement on the main building is completed, and they've begun putting the roof back on. And there you can see the new plywood on that. I think this is taken from like standing over the staff area. So, and then we're back. That's kind of where we are with main library. Any questions?
So everything so far went very smoothly, right?
Pretty smoothly. It's construction. We're trying to address anything that comes up as quickly as possible to keep it moving. We ran into one issue was the pipeline that goes back to the emergency pump station that's near the garden. It's an emergency water well for if the Hetch Hetchy ever has a problem that the water utility would turn on that well and pump groundwater, and use that. Well, that was installed, I think, in 2011, and it was right in the middle of our design and design phase, and it was the coordination was overlooked, so that pipe interfered with some of the drainage pipes, and we had to do a quick redesign to make that work. So that that was a change order.
So it's right on schedule, nothing behind.
We basically, there was enough work. We never, it didn't impact the schedule. It was just, nonetheless, it was a change and some additional cost for us.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious, are you getting a lot of change order requests on this project like we have on Mitchell Park?
Yes. The abatement contractor felt that the lead-based paint removal for the structural steel and the welding was not something that he had included in his bid. However, the invitation for bid did list that a contractor shall assume all structural steel contains lead-based paint, and that's beams and columns. So that's that's a dispute that we're going to work through. But we issued a field order and had them do the work, and then we're just we monitored the time and materials, and we'll work that out through as the project goes on.
Okay, I guess. Well, are there other questions? It's hard. Not that many questions when things are going really well, or so it seems.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Are we going to have some equivalent of what Diane would have presented, or?
What Diane would have presented is what is in this memo.
Ah, okay.
So it basically covered the planning that's been going on, the management staff, and this relates specifically to planning for Mitchell Park, and answers some of the questions that you were asking this evening. I think since August, the management staff has been meeting. They started thinking about this, and they meet weekly. Weekly? Evelyn says yes. And they've laid out, assigned various responsibilities to different staff members, whether it's for aspects of moving, aspects of, devising policies that may be new because the workflow is different things like that. All different elements. There's about 17 different items on the flow chart with different people. And I've likened it to, invading Normandy. Like, we all know what our role is. We know how much time it's going to take. We just don't know the day and time we're going to go. But when they give us the command, we'll go. We'll move. Again, as I mentioned, they're doing as much prep work as they can. And then you all had a presentation over a year ago, I think, about what sorts of services and programs we're planning for the building. So right now our priority is to get moved in, to get the building operational, and to be open to the public as quickly as we can, given the facts that we don't know when, we don't know how everything will test, but we believe it. We are optimistic that we'll be able to do that. So,
how much advance notice will you have that the permit is about to be issued? Has it been applied for already?
It's one of they have to give. I think they have to give the fire marshal like 10 days notice that they're going to do it, or that they need the inspection. So
I see.
And then
so they need to feel like it will be ready in about 10 days.
Yeah.
So
right.
It won't be less than 10 days from now, unless they've given that notice already.
They have not given that notice. It won't be less than 10 days from now. I can pretty
10
much
business days or 10?
It will be more than 10 business days.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not coming up immediately. So, so I think we'll have a few weeks notice, but again, we know that it'll be disruptive and it'll be a problem, but we want to get out. And the nice thing is that the Community Services Department has agreed to allow us to use the temporary library space just to do moving activities if we need, and leave stuff there for a while if we need, and through January or so. So we'll have overlap. It's not like they're planning to immediately rent it out or anything like that, because that was a popular rental space.
There's a wedding on January 1st.
Yeah. It's not going to happen. So.
And this means that the entire facility would be open.
Yes.
Not just would the whole facility open at the same time?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes. What, as I understand it, Ada's Cafe will also needs time to test and to prep and to do the same things we do. So they're going to begin cooking and selling coffee and food and training their staff around the same time that we move in. So our staff will serve to work with them. CSD will be moving. However, they don't have any equipment to move because everything that's going into their space is brand new. So for them, it's different, but they still have to test their computers and their other business. So, but we have all agreed that we will open at the same time together, that we won't have, CSD open a month before the library. We just think that it'll be smoother if we open uniformly.
So just from what you're saying, it's sounding to me like there's a good probability that we will be closed over that Christmas break. And what's our historical pattern? Do we know at all what our usage is during that Christmas, New Year where school's out? Is that really heavy? Is it light?
It's typically light. I mean, we have things going on, but the city itself between Christmas and New Year's often works on a very reduced or modified schedule. I say that we're just going to remain open because you don't know when people will want to come, but it is a slower time of year. It'll pick up, right around the end of the holidays as students realize they might need to do some work before they go back to school, but.
And we'll almost for certain be in that 6 weeks closed period then.
Hopefully we'll be able to do we'll do the soft opening before that. I mean, but again, it all depends on how soon we can get in. Yeah.
And before this official opening, people will at least be able to go to the site, right? Or is it going to be still fenced off?
I don't believe it'll be fenced off because to be able to occupy it, the fence will need to come down. We'll need to.
So people can still maybe go and peek in, but
sure.
I'm just wondering. It's like it'll be access to the site will be open as soon as the construction.
Yeah, we'll need
stuff
to
is out of
park to work there and stuff. So yeah, that's part of the occupancy.
Okay. So the next item in our agenda, unless there are any other questions,
No,
I think we've exhausted all of the potential questions, is follow-up on renaming of main library.
I just wanted to provide you with background in case you had missed it, and we leave it open to you if there is any discussion or questions or anything that you would like to know about what's going on with that. And I assume that you mostly saw the staff report, you saw the information, and the decision was, or the motion was to send the item to Policy and Services. And I believe that at this moment it's on the agenda for their December meeting. So I provide staff report background, but again, it's up to Policy and Services to provide a recommendation. There is some question as to how to interpret the motion of whether it is to receive recommendations from the Palo Alto Historical Association, even though they confirmed the recommendation that you made to rename the library Rinconada. If they're supposed to develop a list, but we're working those details out.
I have a question. When we made the presentation to the council on this, you pointed out that there were schedule issues, getting signs and posters, whatever, for the library name. And of course, this obviously just slipped everything by months. Is this going to have a major impact? I'm sure it's going to cost more because we're going to have to come up with the new signs and new whatever on relatively short notice. But it just kind of boggles the mind that they're doing this and doing it the way that they are, that's stretching it out. And I can just see you're putting tape on the windows. This is the Byron Sher Library.
Well, what's nice about it is that, the sign that is over the door, the entrance to the downtown library says library, and it's lit up at night. A similar sign is at Mitchell Park. It says library. It doesn't have a name. So in terms of the signage package, there is some of it that's fairly generic. The construction manager did call me this weekend to say, hey, where are we on this? What's going on? I have to I have to get this wrapped up. And I said, if it were up to me, you go ahead with what the name is right now, which is Main Library, and but you include in the bid package or the specifications that there is a possibility that there could be a change, and to factor that in, and or provide an ad alternate kind of thing where you know what that is. So that's kind of where we left that bit of information. We're trying to be flexible.
Yes.
But council is aware that there is this potential cost.
Yes.
Okay. Or is there any motion or, I don't know if you feel that we should discuss the name again, or if we should suggest it again to the council, or suggest another name. I'm not sure. I suggested that we have action just in case there was some potential vote that we might take.
Well, the only action we might want to consider is whether we want to have an official representative of the LAC attend the Policy and Services Committee meeting and say, this is why we named it Rinconada, but it's really up to the other LAC members really want to do that. We told them when we made the first presentation, and I don't know if we want to give them any more detail, if it will make much difference, or if we feel that they get bogged down, we might be able to sway them to make a more rational decision than just fighting about which name they want to use. With the hundreds they've got as options. So it's just a question of whether we want to formally appear at the Policy and Services Committee or not, as far as I can see. Otherwise, we just stand back and see what they do. What's people's pleasure?
I mean, I think you presented the new name, and we actually had the joint session with them where we presented the name and our reasoning behind it. I don't know if presenting it a third time, same name, is gonna do much to sway them.
But the thing is that a council member had made decision. They want to choose the name which is meaningful to Palo Alto, like a person with history, or a very famous person who has contributed his whole life or her whole life to Palo Alto, city of Palo Alto. They want to memorize that person. I think they've already made decision like that. So. Should we just present it one more time? Rinconada.
Well, I think they said that would, this sort of opportunity doesn't come up that often. I mean, it's very rare. So instead of just naming it for the rest of the park, name it for a person. I think that was there. But I almost feel like it was maybe an offhand suggestion that then people started feeling that they should agree with, and then I think that's part of the reason it's become like this. I think unless there's a really strong candidate, it's really just going to stay as the main library. That's my personal feeling. Although it does actually seem to cause confusion for, in situations, and it's sort of being reborn, and it's not actually the main library. You even saw a letter that was talking about how it's potentially becoming a branch library, whereas, it starts to bring up a lot of the historical issues that aren't actually related to this name in any way. So I'm not sure what we can do as a body that we haven't already done.
Well, Rinconada is a historical context because one of the original Spanish land grants was Rinconada grants. The long name, but Rinconada was included in there. I forget what it was exactly. my personal tendency is, as Leo has said, we made our pitch a couple of times, and if somebody wants to go and kind of hang around and answer questions, that's fine, but I don't think we need to have anything formal from the LAC presenting to the Policy and Services Committee. I assume you'll be there, won't you, Monique?
Yes.
Okay, well, then we have a representative for sure anyway, so my personal feeling is, well, it's nice to talk about it, and if somebody wants to volunteer to show up, wonderful, but I don't think we need to have the LAC do anything formal at this point.
So I personally was going to go out of a matter of interest, but I wasn't planning on saying anything other than if someone in the LAC had an opinion. I think for us to try to repitch Rinconada would kind of violate their statement to us that they didn't like Rinconada. I thought they were pretty clear about the fact that they didn't find that name compelling. So I think trying to convince them wouldn't be helpful. I also think that pitches for other than a name were made. I thought there were a number of speakers that came out pretty strongly saying that they thought using an individual's name wasn't appropriate, and we still ended up where we are. So I was thinking that what might be the best would be listen to what they come up with in Policy and Services and then decide. We will have a December meeting in between when it goes from Policy and Services to the council, I'm pretty sure, because it's on the 10th, and then we have a meeting, and I think they have to agendize into January, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we'll have another hit. I think, given the way that the proposal worked, that it would either be a human or it would revert to Maine. I think if it reverts to Maine, we might want to make a recommendation that it would be labeled the old Maine or some kind of distinguisher other than Maine because of the confusion element and the staff element. Just because of, I do know when I went around and talked to people, there was an issue of, there were negatives associated with Maine that we might want to just bring up a tweak if it goes back to Maine, but we don't know if that's what's going to happen. So I thought maybe the best right now would be just to listen.
Do you want to make a motion about listening? I think that's a good strategy too, because we've already made our pitch multiple times, and I guess we can give our feedback on whatever the ultimate decision from Policy and Services is.
You want me to make a motion? I'm happy just staying where I am.
Yeah, we can just agendize it. Yeah. I move to agendize.
I do think we should put it on our December meeting as a discussion, just so or as an action, just so we have the placeholder. Because again, their meeting is on the 10th, and I don't think it will go to council before our December meeting. I might be wrong, but if that's the case, then we can just.
Oh, either way,
yeah.
We can just discuss what happened. Okay, so seems reasonable. So let's move on to the next item until December. So item 4 is library publicity and marketing strategies. Sheena Chin will be presenting, I guess. So your name is on here.
It was just a request from
Oh.
her.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought there was some sort of presentation.
Here's the one.
So what, as I understood the request, it was to, so as I understood the request, the question was, is there a formal marketing and PR strategy for the library? And there is not. The libraries traditionally have not necessarily had a formal marketing plan unless they're extremely large, like Chicago Public Library, the sort of urban libraries, council libraries. And frequently in libraries, there are one or two staff people who are pretty good at design or have taken courses in marketing. And those are people who are working on that as part of their duties. But their other duties may be to be a children's librarian, maybe to catalog books. It just depends. So, we recently changed the logo. We have a style guide now that we use. We did have those elements before that were developed about 10 or 12 years ago. But many of the things that we have are going to be revised. And so I did a list of the kind of outreach and items that we do. Press releases and web content need to be either approved by the city manager's office through the PIO or and along with social media and the website, you need to either have special training to be able to modify the website. We're somewhat limited in what we can or cannot use in that respect. There is a social media committee citywide to provide guidance on how we're using social media. So the library itself uses Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter at the moment. Twitter is is the newest thing that we've added. We do regular publications. You receive copies of Hot Off the Shelf when that comes out. That's written by library staff and put together by the staff. And then there's a variety of e-newsletters. And so you have Hot Off the Shelf, I think, in your packets. But as you know, there's a page of the e-newsletters and things that we have that you don't, this information you don't have, so you'll have to pass it around. But it includes, daily announcements, up to daily announcements about different new books that we have or activities that are going on, and those come directly to a person's address. Hot Off the Shelf and this are both opt-in. Libraries tend not to use their registration as an email list. That's not the purpose of collecting that information, and so we do that only on a limited basis. Flyers are written by library staff. This is one of our newest ones, which features all of the databases, which looks like a lot of writing. However, it's intended to be used one-on-one with a reference librarian so that you can talk to them about whatever your specific needs are. So if you're looking for genealogy information, they'll check off the ones that you should use or check most frequently. So this is a single, sort of a single use for specific research items. The location and hours comes out about quarterly with updates and maps of where the libraries are located. This was previously 5 pages of a packet that someone would receive. So getting it down to a smaller, fold, it is a lot of writing, but again, it provides a lot of information. And that is one element that's being redesigned following the logo. And the digital media library in your pocket, this is the more generalized database and ebook kind of handout. And so we develop those on our own as needed. But we've done everything from business card sized items. We had when we were heavily promoting Discover and Go, there was just a a simple business card-sized handout with a QR code and basic information to lead someone just to the website where they could then sign up for whichever museum passes they wanted. So, it is not the most beautiful, but you know, our budget line for this is not huge. We do a lot of the printing in-house. One of the things that we have done is the read posters with the mayors and city council members. We have finished that project, and on December 2nd, when I'm on the council agenda to do a study session regarding the library, we'll be presenting those to the council members, and new ones will be rotated into the selection that are available. So that's a basic information on what we have. Once we have an assistant director on board, part of that person's new responsibility will be looking at how to work on the outreach and utilizing the new style guide, figuring out which pieces need to be done by the outside, the consultant same consultant that we used to develop templates that are better. I mean, he's already developed some basic flyer templates, things like that. So we'll continue to work on that. So, any questions?
The reason I had this request because I know we have so many services which are very valuable for our residents and for our users as well. And we have to market those services to our users. But what we can see now is a lot of handouts and flyers. It's not very organized. In some ways, not very organized. And sometimes if it's not organized, people will get lost and people would miss some services that we had. Probably they would have no idea we provide this kind of service. So this is the reason why I had the request. As for the PR, of course, it's important to that more people know about Palo Alto City Library. But the more important thing is to market our services to our residents and our users. So one of the things I noticed, because I browsed the library website, different libraries' website, I had a feeling that our website is kind of straightforward. Yes, you can find lots of informations and services and data from our website, but it's just like rolling down, and down, and down. So a person has to be kind of patient for that. But nowadays, people are so busy. They have so many things to do at the same time. So probably either they don't have patience to roll it down to find the services that we provide, or they don't want to. They don't have time because they don't have time. So is it possible that we can change the way that our website present? Because I think, I don't know if we have the numbers, and what's the usage of our website to our users and residents? And from my point of view, I think many people would use our website to find their services, no matter it's ebook or some other things. So is it possible that we can make our website more functional, or is it possible?
Would you like to answer that question?
So after us complaining about it, I guess, for a long time, and I mean, obviously the staff knows that it's not optimal, it finally became part of the budget, and there's a capital improvement project that went into starting this year's budget, and it's actually, there's a project now. I don't know where the status of the project is, to actually completely renovate the website. Because I agree with you that we have all these services, but we're not exposing them well. They're probably underutilized, my gut feeling, just because, not because the services are bad, just because people may not know that they exist. Now we're very involved with the library, so we know that these services exist, but some people may not realize that libraries do more than just, let you check out a book or a CD or a movie. So I think it's not just having a good website, because even if someone has to think to go to the website in the first place. That might be the sort of marketing strategy to, at least get people that are using the library to some degree to, increase their usage of these services, but also maybe get them to share, create, I hate to use this word, but gamify it in some way to help people share their interesting services they discovered. That might be a way, instead of, because if someone is not a library user already, they wouldn't go to the website probably just to see what they offer.
Right.
I mean, I'm speaking because my mom, I had to convince her to try her library again, and then she discovered, they're really useful and not dusty old places like when she was a kid. So I think just getting people in the library in the first place, of course, if we improve the website and the way the information is accessed, that would help too. But there's two problems, right? It's getting them in the door, and then once they're in the door, letting them, exposing to them what they can do without overwhelming them.
But the thing is that I think virtual library will be a trend in the future. And lots of people use devices like iPad or iPhone or some other electronic devices. Virtual library will be very important for people's lives. So if we do not improve our website, or we do not improve the way that we show what kind of services we have through website, I think it might be a little bit late. Of course, you want to attract people into library in person, but at the same time, we have to attract people use our library in different ways. Virtually is another way I think we should not neglect.
To be clear, I was saying what I meant, getting them in the door, is even getting them mentally, virtually in the door as well, because they probably wouldn't end up on the website unless they imagine that the library offers such a service, or even look to it as a resource for them, because I think that's not, we all have that understanding that the library offers amazing services. Not everyone does. And I think there are different user groups that you already target, right? That there's the non-users, there's the very, very infrequent users that maybe don't even have a card, although it's really easy to get one, so there's almost no excuse. And then, going up from there. And so, you have to target the people that you can reach easily, and then, because it's not like there's an infinite marketing budget for the library to get the word out, to say, hey, we come download music and get free ebooks. They could, publish in the newspaper every day, and still people wouldn't come and do that. They would go and buy whatever item they could actually, enjoy for free.
But I think that we have the same goal, is that we have to have a marketing plan to let people know, no matter they are interested in using library or not, especially for those target group, we have to let them know what kind of services we have, not just provide the services, but people probably had no idea at all. I think we have the same goal. We have to let our users, at least those target groups, they know what kind of services we have.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I would say hopefully, but I have faith in the people that are leading this project, that they will make a huge leap in the new library, the new virtual library. Yes. And because we've been talking about it for a long time, and we've identified the shortcomings, at the same time, we've expanded the number of programs we offer online. So, so not only was the website bad before, but now we even have more stuff that it's not exposing very well. So they have a challenge, but thankfully it's actually in the capital budget. It's actually happening. It's not that there's not a hack that is happening to get it to exist. It's not like I'm programming it, in my spare time or something. It's actually, there's consultants, I guess.
That project is, that group has been working on what it is they want it to do. Do they want a mobile platform first? Do they want it to actually be a website? And then we will determine which are the best consultants to go for. So that building a virtual library, at every department has to follow the same format and the same website. We don't have control over the way it works, the way it looks. That is the city's IT department. So the scrolling feature is something we could choose to only have 1 or 2 items there. But a lot of people do look for information, and there is historical information there that some people do access and request, which is why we have it there, so that it hopefully turns up in a search. And then the second piece of that is exactly what Orange Boy is working on, which is a market segmentation study. That is their purpose. That is why we hired them, to create, to do a study that comes up with what are our markets, and where really should we target, how should we approach it. So that's actually what Orange Boy is doing. It's more than just a survey. It is real, true market segmentation aimed at libraries and library services. So that information will feed into then the development and the growth of the strategic plan and the virtual library and everything that we're working on.
I'm kind of confused. You say that our website is under City of Palo Alto. It's called Civica, right? So there's limitation for us to do some different functions. But you say that we have the capital and it is happening. And I do not understand. Then what are you referring to? It is happening.
So the existing library, Civica, is the vendor that the city contracts with to have their website. It's a format used by local governments. What you see is a format designed by City IT with City Manager's Office, and we are restricted. So there are certain functions that we cannot do. We are limited in terms of video uploading, things. There's some widgets we can't put in to the website. So there are limitations, and we have a few people on the library staff who are trained to update the information that's on there. For example, the library building projects websites are all updated and maintained by library staff, but the content comes from Public Works, comes from City Manager, things like that. We have a capital improvement project called Library Virtual Branch, or eBranch, which is in the IT department section of the capital improvement budget. It was allocated for $500,000 to work with a consultant and build a virtual branch. That was approved by City Council last year. So we have money, but it will be separate from the website. So you're not going to see any changes now. We are working on the design. We're working on what it is we want the content to be and how it will work with the community. And Leo and Tolu, a former commissioner, worked, a lot with both the city IT website. What was that committee? There was a Citizen Advisory Committee about the city website. So there was a committee for that. as well as meeting with the staff, the library staff who are working on this project. They created some recommendations. They came out with a small pilot, a small project prototype, and using that, we then met with City IT to determine how much money we might need to request in the budget, and then made that request. So now they're building on that initial information.
So do you mean that we will have two websites in the future? One is the original one, another is the virtual library one?
No, the
No.
virtual library will sort of be where everything lives. What we're thinking of is integrating the catalog with the website and providing. So if you were and maybe even other services. So it may be that you have the same front page, but you're led to, your search or whatever to get into the catalog, and you type in, I don't know, Italy. So not only will you have information about the books and the resources the library has, books on tape to learn a language, but you'll also be directed to Live Mocha, which is a brand new language service we have, Mango Languages. You might have videos, lead you to videos about how to cook Italian food, just all of that in one place.
But we have to go through the library main website,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a number of questions. First, just so we're all on the same page, only the press releases have to be vetted by the city manager's office, correct? Everything else is done through the library itself?
The press releases do routinely have to be. Some of the newer items we will also send through the city, the chief PIO public, Claudia Keith, who's in that office.
One of the issues I see is letting people know all the things that are available through the library. Look at this list of all of the topics and some of these other that you passed out. There's a lot available and a lot going on, and people don't have any single way of getting in and finding it. So at the very least, we should have at some site, whether it's the city site or the library site, an easy way where people will be able to see, oh, you're using Link Plus, wonderful, or whatever. Second, in getting word out, a lot of neighborhood associations pass out information on what's happening in the city. And I'll give you just a couple of examples. Midtown comes out with a newsletter every week, and they'll have a whole list of things that are happening in their area, but then at the bottom they'll have, this is the list of events that are happening at Avenidas in the next month. These are the things that are going to happen at the Jewish Community Center. These are the events and so on. I don't see any reason why, if you're having, for example, some of the programs that are listed on off the shelf, give them to the neighborhood associations and have them post it too. Oh, the library is having a parenting program or a kids protection program, whatever. List those things. You can identify what you wanted to put on, what you think was of interest, and get them out to the neighborhood association so they post them on their website and post them on their home pages. Another thing, we have all of these different actions and activities and offerings, let's call them. Many of them are on the web. We ought to have some way of tracking, does anybody ever look at them? Find out, I think we probably do. But
We do. We collect statistics about what the use is for each of the different online services. One of the issues is that the vendors count differently. Sometimes it's every time you log in. Some will count for length of time. They will not count So it's counting different. It's not, it's again not. Statistics will tell you pretty much anything you want, but the vendors make the determination of that, and they report that back to us.
Well, yeah, I know you report how many ebooks, for example, have been checked out, which is an important number to have, but yeah, if the vendors are all doing it differently, there's no way you can compare.
That's correct.
Well, the only thing you can do is you can tell, even if they're counting totally differently, the numbers will change. So you're getting people staying longer, or you're getting more people clicking, or fewer people clicking, whatever. It gives you an idea of the trends, but you can't say this site is more popular than that site because you don't have apples and apples to compare.
That's correct, but we do look at the data every year when it comes time to renew our contracts, and we do make determinations based on overall use and interest, and as well as creating a balance. Many of these are really excellent reference sources for either teens doing homework or adults doing consumer research, or so we try to create a balance that will meet the needs of a broad base of the community.
Well, that gives me an idea. If you talk to the school district, for example, and find out that a particular topic is going to be the senior class project this year, you could then go to the school board or school district's website and say, gee, here's a resource where you can find out all about that topic. So, working with other organizations and then tying in the information capacity we already have.
Right, which we do. For specific local interest research projects, especially for teens, Credo reference, which is one of the reference resources, we can create a customized study research finder, and we do promote that in the schools. The librarians actually go to schools and demonstrate how to use the different resources. So those are activities that we are involved in, and we've been running a sort of a pilot, a study project of what kinds of outreach would be most beneficial in terms of the schools.
Very good. Very good.
Okay. Go. You had another question?
I'd like to know that Orange Boy, did they finish their study, or they are doing their result?
No, they're not done yet. They have scheduled their stakeholder interviews for mid-November. They recently received the voter registration overlay, which we had to go down in person to the county registrar's office to actually get that information to them. So they're comparing voter data with our cardholder data, and then they have sent out postcards to people who, randomly to people to participate in the survey, and as well as opt out if they didn't wish to participate. So far, we've been receiving overwhelmingly positive responses, and one or two people, I think, opting out. So that part of the process will continue in the middle of November. There was no intention that it would be done by this time. We knew that it would take until after probably the holidays to get the results back.
So I think it's good that we should revisit this, because it brought up a lot of projects and that we've already discussed. So thank you for getting us to talk about this. I guess if there are other questions, we can always address them later. So item number 5 is 2014 LEC priorities. So normally, we've all done this before. So normally what we do is we choose well, we had a bigger commission before. When we had 7 people, we would choose 3 to 4 topics that we wanted to have a subcommittee work on throughout the year. And they're usually related to something we heard from the council, like a particular topic, or something we were curious about that we hadn't really investigated and that we weren't going to ask the staff to, it's not some numbers the staff would have. An example would be the virtual library was a priority, outreach and creating that, basically that presentation, actually implementing the presentation, or actually presenting the presentation that we've created, which might be a topic for this year, revising our bylaws, and we also had what was the finance?
It was finance and
Finance.
best practices.
Okay, the finance subcommittee, which compared how we were doing, as a library compared to other libraries of similar size, and with certain numbers and metrics. So I guess this is where we discuss our priorities for next year and what we want to focus on. And usually we'll form a subcommittee of, I guess now it's 2 people, to work on these topics. Although, to be fair, there are 2 of us that are... 3 of us whose appointments end before the middle of next year in April. So maybe these would be early 2014 priorities that we can work on until then.
I wanted to interject, too, that at one point I was talking to the city attorney, and any of these kind of subcommittees cannot be longer than a 6-month time period. So just, you might want to keep that in mind.
Okay, so 2014 first half LAC priorities / subcommittees. Normally we actually kind of brainstorm this instead of just, so I don't know if we want to try that now, if that's, so.
Do you want me to be the scribe?
Let me start with something that I think we ought to be considering. I don't know whether we want to make a subject for a subcommittee or not, but when Mitchell Park reopens, which I understand is going to happen this century, yes, but he is very optimistic. We're going to have a facility we have never had before in Palo Alto. It's going to have a lot of meeting rooms, study areas, and children's area, a large children's area, in conjunction with a regular library. So I think we ought to be considering how it functions. And I remember when we had the Terman Library open with the only meeting room the library system had, it was extremely heavily used. And we had a lot of issues deciding who was going to use it first and what the priorities were going to be and all that. So at some point, we ought to be looking at how are the facilities in Mitchell Park going to be used, what's the demand, and how can we satisfy what people want. As an example, on Terman, we agreed that the first priority was going to go to Palo Altans. And a lot of organizations wanted to meet in the room. We said, okay, you have to have at least 51% of your members are Palo Alto residents in order to be first on the priority list. So we can consider something like that for Mitchell Park. I'm not saying do it, I'm saying these are the sort of things you can consider, and how you actually adopt it and implement it is going to depend on what happens after it opens and the demand we have for services. So that's something we got to be thinking about, because we haven't had experience with the kind of facility, the kind of, let's call it non-library facilities that we've had, that we're going to have when Mitchell Park opens, the meeting and gathering areas.
Right. Well, we have experience now with it at downtown in a smaller way.
It's very small.
The two study rooms and the community room, With the study rooms, in the first year, we had close to 900 reservations for those 2 rooms, and that's not a 7-day-a-week facility. But prior to that, we have a policy that's established in terms of room rentals, how people take care of it, how you make reservations, all of that information, as well as any fees that are attached to that, because it has to work into the city fee schedule. So all of that was worked on before I arrived in preparation for the opening of that. And it is based mostly on CSD, and because they have had meeting rooms and spaces. So our rates are compatible with theirs. Our use is somewhat similar. And then we have experimented with using liquid space, which has reduced the amount of staff time involved in making reservations and managing those by about 50%. Evelyn's no longer in charge of that, thank goodness. So, it's more up to the branch staff. So those kind of policy and use issues, I bring those to you as we develop them.
We actually reviewed them.
Yes.
A few months ago.
So those exist. I don't know that it would require any change necessarily. I know that the scale is larger, obviously, and we will work with CSD if we need to use their spaces as well.
There's one aspect of Mitchell Park which is very different from downtown, and that is it's going to draw from 2 schools. And the old Mitchell Park facility was overwhelmed with kids in the afternoons of school days. So I can see there being a lot of competition for the study rooms and meeting rooms school day afternoons. And if some organization wants to rent them at that time, we have to decide,
We have a lot of school kids using downtown and using them with adults as well, working on projects. I don't think we've had any complaints about, wasn't able to use a room or wasn't able to work in a space. So I think that we can certainly monitor that. Obviously we will if we hear anything. But we do have high school and middle school aged users of those rooms.
Okay, I'm not saying we're going to have a problem. I'm just saying watch it.
Well, I would like to assume that everyone's going to be so proud of the facility that they'll want to use it in the best way possible.
Actually, probably trying to go from Bob's comment to your starting point, since this is a session on setting our priorities. I actually did a lot of brainstorming, but I'm going to toss out what I think should be a really high priority item and then bridge it to Bob's. I have a long list, but it seems, given that we have a 6-month time frame and how all staff should be and will be totally focused on Mitchell Park, that anything we do that would take any time away from staff shouldn't be commenced right now, that we should in fact take a role of really being supportive and maybe taking our very first priority being whatever we can do to help, kind of an all hands on deck. Can we help arrange shelving hours? Can we find volunteers? Can we, get out of Dodge? Can we, whatever it might be, to be supportive? I think maybe one of our very first priorities would be basically doing whatever we can to help with the Mitchell Park launch, because I think that in a 6-month time frame is probably the best use of certainly staff's time and probably ours. But then to put in a second half priority, because again, I was brainstorming a lot of different possibilities as to what would be different things, and again, mindful of the 6 months, that we might want a second half priority of, now that Mitchell Park is open and people are using it, maybe brainstorming what are possible additional uses that aren't currently being done. Just coming up with, and I have talked to staff, and they've got tons and tons of ideas of what they want to do, because they've been looking forward to this for a long time and really working on it. But maybe after the first 6 months, then working with the community and seeing what are those things that the community might like and can envision that aren't being done, but make that like a second half priority. So you're, the community rooms or staff or communities, whatever, that do that as a second half priority, but really focus first on Mitchell Park launch. That's enough for me right now.
So is that one or two items, or you're suggesting one for later?
I actually have a whole lot of lists for the
Okay.
brainstorm, but I'm suggesting, because they're 6 months item, I would suggest the first item on our priorities list might be something having to do with supporting the Mitchell Park launch or transition or whatever we might decide is appropriate work for the commission. And then as a second priority, but breaking it as to a second half of a 2004 priority would be, once Mitchell Park is open, looking at new and expanded uses. Because I was just kind of stepping off of one of the things off of my list, but listening to what Bob was talking about now. But instead of making it a first half priority, make it a second half priority.
My only suggestion, and I guess it all falls back into, this idea of support, is maybe we take the second step of this presentation that does talk about where the library is at now, what services it offers, and actually start presenting it to neighborhood groups and wherever else. Maybe a tiny bit of polish and any new. There's certainly new services that we need to add to it, but as a separate thing.
So another thing on my list was actually kind of coming up with just, City Council said that one of the things they would like us to do is be spokesman, and they actually cited the complaints we were getting about the blue wall. And one of the ideas was come up with our own little marketing campaign about, why is the wall blue? Why are the little banners yellow? Why is the wall pink? Why is it a plant? Because there was a lot of work done, and probably the only people who know that work was done and the hours of community comment and the reason behind each one of those decisions are those people who were there then. Probably nobody else remembers or knows or can even imagine. And
I don't know why the wall is blue. I didn't know it would be blue or imagine it when I.
But every single one of those items have a reason, and it was carefully thought out. So instead of accepting public negative, we hate this, just have a packet whenever we get one of our negative letters saying, oh, and here is our little brochure saying, thank you for your comment. The wall is blue because of such and such, and did you know these other 20 interesting facts about Mitchell Park? But that also might be, one of our things, getting to the outreach and marketing, and also to the city council's request, just coming up with this is the response of why. Why is Mitchell Park this particular way? And there's a lot of them, a lot of them if you go back into the history.
Do you have an idea or suggestion that?
I think Eileen's suggestion is very good because we really have to put our focus on Mitchell Park, and we've waited for the moment for so long, so we should put our focus on that, yes.
One of the things we might want to consider is, I think I can think of at least 4 or 5 neighborhood associations that have regular meetings, monthly or quarterly. And sometime next year, after Mitchell Park is opening up for a little while, we might want to try to make presentations to the neighborhood associations during their meeting and saying, this is what the library now offers. Mitchell Park is open and it does bang, bang, bang. And oh, by the way, did you know the library also has these things you can use? And pass out flyers saying, like the one that like this one here, you know, all of the library functions and operations, something like this, or, you know, I'm sure Monique has a pile of these sorts of things we could pass out at the community associations and just get them aware of the fact that this is available.
Well,
A lot
I
of
think
people
that
don't really
is
know.
that is the idea, is
Yeah.
to actually present.
Okay, actually
So
present
y-
at the
I
association.
think that maybe I should restate the suggestion. I believe that one of the priorities should be that we present to these to organizations, but an actual subcommittee or priority would be to actually identify and potentially schedule the actual speaking, because I don't think only two of us should then go do it if we do it, and it doesn't even have to be only, it could be former LAC members as well, because clearly they've shown an interest in the sort of thing, so we were not spread too thin. But I think identifying those actual speaking opportunities that would be useful and effective, I think that would actually be the role of a subcommittee in this case, not just giving the presentation itself, because I think it would be great to see all of us do it. I think that's one of the things we can do as the LAC as part of outreach. But we shouldn't all figure out, let's imagine all of these groups. I think maybe we should actually assign it to some subcommittee to actually create a list, find the contacts, schedule it, find the speaker, etc.
consider, for example, do you want to give it to community organizations like Avanitas or the Jewish Community Center, which has presentations on various things anyway? Is that something we want to do? I don't know, but the committee can do it. if they think
Yeah.
about it.
So it's phase 2 of that presentation subcommittee from the past year or so. 6 months, I mean. Sounds like there's.
May 1st.
It sounds like there's two. Sounds like there's only two. Oh, sorry, 3. The third one was creating the response to the Why is the Wall Blue?
So I think we have a lot of things, but since this is brainstorming, and I would also put this as second 6 months, because I think anything that interferes with Mitchell Park would not be wise. But I think the technology, given that there will probably be a new catalog and a new web page and a lot of new things coming on board, just maybe having a group somewhat like what you did, but envisioning possible new technologies that to consider, or new ways technology would be used, just thinking about it, more long-range thinking, looking forward. But I think that would be a second 6 months item.
And I'm not sure. It's hard for me because I know my term is expiring in April. And I know it's 6 years for me. I'm not sure. I mean, do you have ideas that? The other thing is maybe it makes sense instead of saying, we have to identify everything for the next, 15 months that we're going to be doing and thinking about. And realistically, maybe we have bigger priorities like supporting the reopening of the libraries, but then the actual subcommittees are based on more specific 6-month goals. Like the next 6 months, it's supporting Mitchell Park reopening. And then after that, it's going to be, okay, we support, it's open, and let's look back at it and make sure, maybe there's some improvement that can happen and that a subcommittee would make sense to help with. I guess in that sense, maybe the LAC priority I would say is, that I would suggest is help the Mitchell Park Library reopen successfully. And then we create an actual subcommittee that is tasked with, one particular aspect of it versus another. I don't think we need to have a different priority for each subcommittee necessarily, because outreach is actually helping it open successfully, and so is why is the wall blue. Maybe that is the priority. Do we have to have more than one? And main library will not be reopening next year, is it? Or that is when it, okay, so maybe those are the two priorities.
Maybe it's just one, it's just successfully support reopening, and you do Mitchell Park and then you do Maine.
Well, if you want to have priorities, then at least give us two. Want to support the reopening of Mitchell Park and support the reopening of Maine. And actually, going back to, I don't remember, it's been a few years, but one of the joint meetings with the city council, I keep going back to this. I drew this very hand-wavy graph that was talking about sort of what I imagine the commission would be doing over time. And at the time, we were really focused on the building projects. And once the buildings are built, it's not really, we're not going to be talking about, well, is it built yet? It's really going to be what is happening in the library, which is really, I think, that wasn't, the LAC was founded or was created as part of renovating the libraries physically. And now we've gotten to a point where that's going to be completed in a sense. And really, I saw us coming to an inflection point where it's really going to be talking about services and, and the effectiveness of services and efficiencies and things like that. And I really think we're finally hitting that inflection point once the building is actually open. So maybe we're at that inflection point, and that's just what we need to help. It sounds reasonable to me. I don't know, do we need to make a motion, or can we just decide? Maybe a motion, just.
I think we need a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that our sole priority for the next 6-month period be support in all ways possible the launch of the successful launch of the Mitchell Park branch.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. All in favor? All right. So we have set our 2014 first half priority.
You can start now if you like.
Okay. Okay, good.
So to that end, I think we have to, given that the library will probably be open by the time we next have our meeting on your soft launch, if your fingers crossed works. So for us to actually do that, is it best for us to work with one of your staff? Is it best for us to come up with ideas? How can we support and not get in your way?
So Sheena's working hard with the opening committee. I think that's very supportive and very helpful. Are you also working with them, or?
I have been actually sick or
Oh,
gone,
right.
but I am now back. So I was going to talk to Sheena, and also I was just going to check with Ruth Ann if I would be a duplicate, or if she'd like the extra help. But,
So there's now a steering committee and working committees who are focusing on specific activities. So that may be an appropriate place to insert yourself, as long as we're careful about Brown Act kind of stuff. But I think, we can get around that because there's different things. They're doing different things. And so maybe there are different aspects that each of you are interested in in knowing more about. So, for example, maybe you'd rather, with a small child, you'd rather not be having to go to meetings and doing things, but maybe you can cull through the building project's website and come up with some information that might be, valuable, because we do have people who either complain or congratulate us on the color. There was one lady who really loved it. So I think, there would be, and then we can work with you in that respect. So if there are different things like that, maybe think about where your strengths lie. I can go back to Ruth Ann and find out, is there anything specific that we can have you do? Then we can poll you via email and insert you where you'd be most helpful.
Super.
Do you think us giving a presentation to the two different groups would actually be helpful, so that you don't need to send a staff member? Although I don't know if you normally send a staff member as well.
We don't normally send staff to, if there's a request from a neighborhood group or an organization, like Kiwanis asked me to speak, so it's usually me.
Okay.
So to have a backup or have somebody else, that would be great.
Okay.
And it would be one of those great things that maybe using the network that Bob suggested, of just sending it to them and saying, hey, we're available to come and talk about it. We're getting ready to open it. We want to tell you more about what the library has and answer some of your questions as much as we can. Yeah. And see what kind of feedback, just based on my own, going to Rotary functions, going to city meetings and things like that. Everyone asks, so how's Mitchell Park going? And they're saying, don't want to bother you, but when is that library going to be open? It's so. It is the.
But they can bother us instead of you, which
yes.
I think, in a sense, is creating a bit of a firewall because people will get the information, but then you can actually focus on opening it instead of answering the question.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Obviously, I'm happy to do it, but I think it's great for them to see that there are other people involved, and that that it's not just Public Works or just library staff, but here's a support group that, and it may be a great recruiting tool for those of you who aren't reapplying in April. If they're interested in being on the commission, here's how you apply, because that is part of it. So I think that would be an effective way to go about that.
And we have spiffy name tags.
We do. I do.
Oh, although they're the old logo, so.
Yeah.
People won't believe that we're really from the library. Okay. So that is helpful then.
It's helpful, and I will get back to you.
Okay. What I'm saying is I would like to do this sort of thing and potentially help. I don't know if I'm the best person to organize it, but I could definitely work with somebody who's interested in that.
Yeah, that's actually, if between you and Ruthann can just give a list of how we can support, then I think we can pick whatever we know or like.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'll also ask Diane Lai, because there's definitely technology, assistance that could be helpful. There's definitely other things like that. So we'll check in. Thanks.
Okay, so we feel good about this priority. Yeah, I think it makes sense, especially after imagining that graph. We're at that dot where they cross. We're almost at that dot. So, item number 6.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
So are we going to discuss the second 6 months priority, or we just discuss the first part? Because Eileen just proposed that we can do the virtual library something. She suggested that maybe we can set it as the second 6 months priority. Do you want to discuss that, or we just skip it?
I feel like maybe that's something better handled when there's a new commissioners, because we can set it, but then if it
okay,
may not make sense.
I just want to check with you. Okay.
I think, at least in the current state of the commission, it kind of makes sense. Although you can clearly suggest those priorities when it comes up. Yeah. Because they probably won't, any new commissioner probably is not going to really have a clue of what, okay, next 6 months, what do we do? Although it would be great if they did. So that's my, I mean, unless someone feels strongly that we should set the rest of the priorities. Okay. So item number 6 is discuss only, no action, the Verizon Tower project. It is Verizon on the baseball field. So you may have seen an email from me in the packet that basically said any opinion I give will strictly be my own and not necessarily the LAC's. I feel like it's a complicated topic, especially considering that, well, I know at least internet speeds in Midtown are terrible for wired connections, unless you're on Comcast. But I'm not sure about the actual wireless, if that's actually a problem or if it's a sort of, trumped up problem. So I don't know how much of a problem it is, but then we just built this nice building, and there's now going to be some extra towers blocking some of the really nice view from the second story. But it's in my email that was printed here, so.
Well, there's 2 points. One of them is the potential blocking of the view because the library was designed. The idea was it would have a nice view of everything, and we took the tour a couple months ago, and it was lovely, and you could see the fields and the park on the other side. And depending on what the towers look like and where they are exactly, if they block the view right after the library is open, that would not be too good for us or for the community. So at the very least, I think we want to say, well, we don't want to have any structures put up that interfere with the, let's call it the visual quality from the library. And then we can get into details depending on what it is they're actually proposing, because right now we don't really know.
Have you seen, I've seen an elevation drawing that shows trees that would be removed, and it's not, I don't think it's in the packet.
Well, I haven't seen the drawings, but I've seen a couple of these fake trees, and they're kind of cruddy.
Well, there is one right behind the building, right behind Metro Park.
There's one right there
Yeah.
now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I noticed that once.
Well, it's, as I understand it, it's different providers, so I don't know what the range or any part of that is, so again.
Okay, well, there have been issues where both AT&T and Verizon wanted to put up antennas within 100 feet of each other, and the city's been resisting this in other neighborhoods. And basically, they've told them, share. And in some cases, they did, in other cases, they're still fighting. But if there's already an antenna, and it's, let's assume an AT&T antenna, the first priority should be Verizon, you rent from them. Use the same facility, because we don't need more of them put up. The second thing is that in terms of needing Wi-Fi, one of the things that's on the council agenda for Monday night, about 15 years late, is putting in a city broadband facility. The city already has a fiber trunk about 45 miles, and they earned over $15 million over the last 8 or 9 years renting it out to a relatively small number of companies. And most city and school facilities have direct fiber connectivity. So they're talking about expanding it. And if that's done right, you won't need wireless. The broadband will work much better. So there's a possibility that the wireless will become obsolete within 5 years, depending on what the city decides doing Monday night.
Well, I mean, these are cell towers, though. It's
You know, there will be some towers anyway, but putting new ones in will be a much lower priority. So I just think we ought to, just be aware of it. And when it's official at the ARB, I would hope at least Monique would go down there and look at what's being proposed and see if we want to take a formal position.
My role comes earlier or at a different time in the process, not necessarily at the public meeting. Normally the discussions happen with the rest of the city staff.
As long as you're aware and involved, that's what I'm concerned about. That's fine.
I'm not 100% certain. Are there currently lights on this field at all? Or am I don't...
I'm not 100% sure now that you mention it. I believe so, yeah. I believe that there are. I can't imagine it wouldn't be a lighted field.
I believe there is currently one and they want to put in two. But it won't be the same one. So they will go from one existing to two new repositioned, I think.
Because it seems to not be, at least the way the design is the two lights will not actually be for the main field, but would be for a smaller field in the back corner of the property. It's not actually designed, as far as I saw, because you have the main outfield, and it's actually going to be this corner here, and they're putting two towers like this to create a small T-ball field. And the library's over here.
So this is...
Sorry, middle field.
Yeah. So this is actually just touching the parking lot?
Yeah, and the trees here at the, and this is the parking lot.
Yeah, okay, so that's not...
Sorry,
And we
it's...
have light. And we have lights in the parking lot.
That's true. But they're not going to be nearly as tall as these. Well, they weren't in the elevation drawing, so I'm not sure. But these don't need to be these need to be taller, I presume, than something just for lighting.
May I know our position, if we have any, on this matter?
I have no position on this matter.
So for the library, it's okay, or?
I haven't seen any information, so I have no position. I need to see the information, have a discussion, and if I had a position or not, that may not sway anyone, but I certainly would, advocate for what's in the best interest of the library, fully cognizant that whatever's adjacent to us is adjacent. So we, just as we have schools on one side, we design the building to be cognizant of that. Hopefully this would work out so that it's not.
So since it's just beside the library, so do we have the right to oppose the plan or anything like that, because we're sort of neighbor to this?
You as commissioners have the right to oppose it. I cannot do that in public, and I will not do that in public. I will advocate for what's in the best interest of the library, but as a city staff member. So I'm city staff, so I'm not going to stand up at a meeting.
But the thing is that just like neighbor, if they want to build a cell tower just beside your house or your property, you would have right to say something. No matter you go for it or you are against it, you have right. And it is just beside city's property. So will city present their position or?
The city will, yes, the ARB will, the Architectural Review Board, the Planning Department, the Building Services Department, they would all have to approve or deny the permit.
Okay.
So there are all kinds of regulations that they would have to comply with.
But their decision is based on the feedback from the community, right?
There is, public input is generally part of the process. The vendor has already had some public meetings in advance of their formal presentation to the city. But there are multiple opportunities for people to give feedback. But my position, my opinion in terms of what the library is asked, that comes at a different point in the decision-making process. It's not at a public meeting. It may be included in a report, but it's part of the city staff process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the other thing to note, and I don't know if it's been mentioned, is there was another proposal for a similar tower, I believe somewhere in this area, in the somewhere around the ball field, that was rejected in the last few years. So there's clearly going to be, the people that live on the other side of Middlefield, and presumably along Meadow. Is that Meadow? Yeah. Are going to have some opinion and are probably already organized for this sort of thing, if they're opposing it or supporting. So I think we need to just wait for more information to see, have something official before we can comment on it. And clearly, if it's going to be something controversial, we need to put it on the agenda, as one of the first items. And if people are going to show up, that's, we can see the public sentiment. Okay. So I guess we can move on to the library director's report.
Sure, I'll be brief. You did receive an update on different activities. I did want to mention that in relation to the new self-check machines that have been installed, as of today, all of the self-check machines at the branches, with the exception of Temporary Maine, which is still using the older models, but the new models are now set so that you can email yourself your receipt rather than print it out. So that's kind of a nice feature that's active right now. And I did want to mention, too, that MakeX, the teen makerspace, is in the lobby of City Hall right now. So it will be available based on the schedule of the teens who help run it. So it'll be Thursday evenings and Saturday afternoons through the middle of November. I also know, did receive communications as well as something from Mary Beth, which she had mentioned regarding the PLP legislative breakfast, and she wanted me to include those documents in case there were any comments. So I just wanted to mention that if you did have any, you could make them or ask questions. But other than that, unless you have any questions, we are obsessed with Mitchell Park.
I just have a real quick one. And it was actually, I saw hot off the shelf where you had your teen tutors, and I see here it's discontinued. So the teens, the very last item you have on the first page saying you're creating.
It's actually the end of the grant funding. It's not an end of the program.
Yeah, was my question.
So
the kids are going to continue to do.
They are doing it in a little different format. They're not working directly with the partners that they had, but they are working by appointment, and they are in the branches themselves as technology tutors. So if you are an older adult and you want to make an appointment, you can do that. If you're not an older adult and you want to make an appointment, you can do that as well.
But the teens are continuing. It's just the
Yes.
funding. Okay, that was a question. Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay, seeing no other questions, no council liaison report today. Any commissioner reports and questions?
speaking of full support with Mitchell Park reopening, I just want to let you know that I'm involved with the subgroup committee of marketing and PR for Mitchell Park, and I'll continue my effort.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'll just give you a summary of the FOPAL status. Their book sales are going on fairly consistently, and give you the current income and expenses status. In September, the book sale income was over almost $35,000. Total income, including contributions and so on, was $35,400. The fiscal year for the first quarter, book sale income is $91,000, and total income is $95,500. The book sale expenses for the September were $15,700, and for the first quarter were $51,300. So the net income for September was almost $19,000, and the net income for the first quarter was about $40,000. They have 100 and wait a minute, I'm missing it. They have grants which they have not given out of about $120,000, and some of that's being held. Oh, here it is. Yeah, some of that's being held because it was to be donated something like $70,000 for books and things when Mitchell Park opened. And they're waiting to buy that before there's no point in buying the books and not having any place to put them in. One of the things that was interesting was they've been putting out charts on income and expenses, and over the last 2.5 years, the income has been essentially flat. It's gone from about $23,500 to about $25,000, but their expenses have gone from about $11,000 to over $15,000 per month. And the big reason was because they've hired a paid staff, which they didn't have until early 2012. So the staff expenses have used up some of their income. So they have, here it is, $118,000 in grants, and they're holding off $67,000 for collection leased books until the library opens. Another item I had was kind of interesting. You might recall at the joint meeting we have with the City Council, Karen Holman asked about circulation at Palo Alto libraries and compared with other libraries. And I had a horrendous time getting any data from Menlo Park and Mountain View. But I finally did from Mountain View, and Menlo Park was hopeless. They had nothing on circulation, on size, anything. But I was able, and the other thing is that Mountain View is 2 years out of date. They're not in the same category as we are in terms of putting out information on circulation, but there are a couple of points that are kind of interesting. The total circulation at Mountain View 2 years ago was 1,688,000 volumes. Ours was 1,540,000. But then if you look at circulation per square foot, theirs was 24 books per square foot. Ours overall was 33. But what really stands out is Mitchell Park. The temporary Mitchell Park had the highest circulation in the system, and the circulation per square foot was over 108 books, which is huge. So there's obviously a really big demand for service in that area. And I can imagine what it's going to be like when the new facility opens and it's stocked and people can come in and from the schools, for example, and sit and study and take the books out and all that. So I imagine we're going to have in fiscal year 13, 14, a big bump in circulation even with Maine closed. Or not- Well, we have a temporary Maine, but Maine is shut way down. The other thing that I thought was interesting is look at the circulation for children's. Almost 58 books per square foot. Children's library is extremely popular, and I've been in there a few times, and it was like a mob scene.
Well, to be fair, Bob, when you go, you never just check out one children's book.
Yeah.
It's usually there's a bag or involved. Although that's still a pretty big number.
A couple of other things. I wasn't going to pass these out, but then I got to thinking about it. We've had children's music in the libraries for months, and it was interesting that some other libraries in the county, San Mateo County, have been doing it, and they were very pleased at how well it was received. So this is just for information that other libraries are doing the sort of thing that we're doing, and it's a big hit. And then just for information, there's a lot of, I don't know what the best word is to use for it, thought. Let's say there's a lot of thought about what libraries are going to be doing in the future. Is there a future for libraries? How are you going to fund them? How are you going to operate them? This has been going on for years. You know, I know some people in Palo Alto say, well, the internet's going to replace libraries. You're not going to need libraries anymore. And we're not finding that's true. But anyway, here was an article on the next chapter of libraries, and I just pass it out for information. Basically, there is a next chapter for libraries, and there is a real need for them, and they really are going to be used. Sometimes in new ways, and sometimes the same way, but in different emphasis. It was just things I thought that the commission and staff might be interested in.
Can I back up one thing? I forgot to hand out to you some statistical information. We are just putting together or finishing up the state library report.
We have more current data from that then.
Well, and Bob, I will email you the state library's compilation of all of the report data, which comes out annually, and it's downloadable in an Excel file, so you can manipulate it however you want and get updated information from everybody. So whether it's it won't be on their website, but the state library does have that data.
Because I just had a terrible time finding Menlo Park.
And they probably already do all the math for you and everything.
Okay,
So
wonderful, because I got very frustrated.
the California State Library has a great website which has information on there, and there is a part that says for the public, and then there's another part that says for libraries. And if you go into there, you'll find out all kinds of information.
Send it over and I can tabulate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I wanted to point out this is some basic information that we've gathered as we expected. Use has gone down overall, in terms of materials checkout. eBranch virtual visits have gone up. Actual customer counts has gone down. We knew all of this was going to happen when we closed. I mean, May, we've been in temporary Maine. It was only like a month and a half, but that did have a pretty significant effect, although temporary Mitchell Park did actually increase over last year. Downtown, I think the increase of 30% in circulation is pretty dramatic considering the size of that facility. But we've continued on with the study room, the community room uses. Public PC sessions are going down. I think more people are bringing their own devices and using the Wi-Fi. And again, we still can't count that, which I know you would like for them to be able to. And program attendance has, went up dramatically as well, so more people are participating in a greater number of programs. We don't have collection numbers. A lot of things are in storage, and so we were trying to figure out, should we count just what's available? Should we count everything? You know, all of that kind of stuff. And of course, it's going to be much smaller, but we're going to, I'm going to check in with the state library to see what their recommendation might be. So, you know, I know you just receiving this tonight. I'll be happy to answer any quick questions you have. If you have anything specific later,
Always
let me
looking
know.
at numbers. Once again, congratulations on school-age programs.
Thank you.
I'm never a victim of your own success, but that's fabulous. The numbers at the top don't surprise me. The only one I'm curious about here is your database searches, down so significantly, which
Mhm.
I wouldn't think that would be tied to facilities being open. Do we know what they're not looking at? Do we have any idea? Is there a
I
difference
don't.
in count?
I would attribute it perhaps to the way vendors changing the way that they count, but I would have to investigate that more.
No.
Yeah. Yes. I know that the reference librarians were very happy that circulation was, or that the reference questions went up again, even if it was just so slight. They were worried last year.
Well, I guess I have a. How can you measure the square footage of the virtual branch?
Yeah, we're never going to be able. Yeah, Bob, you're going to have to come up with a way to measure that.
Well, I guess you could measure how much space the servers take up somewhere. So
That's true.
there is some physical aspect of that.
The growth in ebooks is impressive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the ebooks are large percentage growth, but overall it's still such a small part of our circulation. Hopefully that continues to go up.
You
And
know,
there's
that's,
no way to. Well, I guess we have number of visits, right?
Mhm.
So, but we don't know how many people. We don't know sort of and it would be really hard to track just the amount of time. How many of those visits are just coming in for 5 minutes versus coming in and staying? And I don't know if you have a way to measure that. And especially now that we're going to be having more seating that encourages people to stay. I know downtown, every time I go there, any time, there's always, people reading or working on their laptop or whatever it is. And before, it was just not as visible. I'm just wondering if it would be seat sensors, I don't know, measure the length of time people actually stay versus, without getting into privacy issues. I don't know if you can even
It's
do it.
possible that we could, there are ways of studying that. Most of it has to do with having someone who sits in the library and observes and basically times a few different people randomly and then comes up with some sort of an average or a median or, something like that.
It would be interesting. Have we ever done that?
No, not that I know of.
And that's not part of Orange Boy's.
No, they did sit and observe and watch people use the facilities.
Okay.
But that's different than measuring the amount of time.
That would actually be really interesting to see. Not suggesting it should be undertaken right now, but
We might want to
It's
put
something
that one
that-
on the back.
well, unfortunately, we don't have historical data
Yes.
from before the.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But from what I hear about downtown before and now, you're right. There are people literally who come in and spend most of the day there, and whether they sit outside or they sit in the library, they do spend a significant amount of time there.
Yeah, it's a good place to stay.
It's always full.
So, are there any other questions?
So the volunteer part, it seems that the volunteer hours and the number of volunteers go down. Would that affect the whole operation for the library?
No, because what volunteers do are not just, but are significant tasks, but tasks that are spread out over a broad range of people. And they are typically not tasks that staff would ordinarily have to do. So staff do the regular operational things, and these are support or enhancement tasks that are done. And we did change how we have been recruiting, and we are at the moment not heavily recruiting additional volunteers because the investment in time to train them and get them up to speed. Those staff are focusing again on just getting us moved and taking care of things like that. We have seen a lot of growth in the number of teens involved, mostly because they want to complete their community service hour requirements, but also, some of them then end up staying because they like either working at children's or on special events or things like that.
Another question is that the visit, how do you count the visit? Because when you go to Costco, there's a person using this machine.
We have electronic counters on the security gates. There are counters there, and at the other branches there are electronic sensors that count.
Okay, so any comments and announcements? Seeing none, agenda for the next meeting, which is the December meeting?
Right.
Okay.
So the December meeting would normally be scheduled for December 26th. I'm planning on being at work, but I'm not sure that all of you are. So I would like to ask if there is, an interest in moving the date. If you want to leave it on the 26th, fine with me. Maybe not so much for Evelyn, but we'll figure that one out. So I don't know. It's up to you.
I'm okay either way, but if it happens, as long as it's after, as long as we have the naming to discuss, and this meeting happens after that discussion, I'm fine with it.
Right. So policy and services is December 10th.
Okay, so.
So.
For some reason, I actually have it on the current calendar on the 19th. Is that a mistake? I actually thought the calendar has it on the 19th.
That's right.
We usually schedule it because of the holidays, so we move it up a week. So
24th doesn't work.
Well, it would be the 26th.
Yeah, 26th.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that
Yeah, I have it
on
too.
the calendar, I have it on the 19th.
Oh, you
That's
do?
the pre-published calendar.
Oh, okay.
That's what I have too.
Okay, so then the 19th then is fine.
Yeah, that's actually what the
Calendar says. Okay, perfect. I'm sorry. I have it, it's showing up on my calendar on the 26th, but that's fine. Probably because Outlook is programmed for every other month on the fourth Thursday, so. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So the 19th it is. So the agenda for the 19th, discussing the renaming, probably an action item.
Yeah.
we should.
Mitchell Park status. It's
Yeah,
always
Mitchell.
on the agenda.
Well, hopefully by then it will be,
Yeah.
something will be happening, so, I mean, that could be the status.
What we'll talk about is when we have our big opening party.
Well, that will already be set by then, so,
Oh, we're not going to start planning it at the next LEC meeting?
no.
I hope.
These two ladies have
I'm
been
just
going
joking.
crazy.
So something about Mitchell Park opening.
Okay.
We'll clearly, high fives related to the Mitchell
Yes.
Park opening.
I wanted to tell you that I am asking the managers, each manager, to sign up for an upcoming agenda so that they will make a short presentation, maybe 15 minutes, about either a project they're working on, something they've accomplished recently, or just something that's in general of interest that will provide you with more information about the library. So
That's a good idea, and then you just decide which manager's available at that time, and,
They sign up, so they've planned ahead.
okay. So you have somebody already scheduled for December?
No, but not yet. We haven't sent out the calendar. We just presented this. And I did want to mention that again, on December 2nd, I'm scheduled to be meeting with council as a study session, just to talk about library activities and what we've worked on, and or what, summer reading program, what's gone
This is
well.
during the regular council meeting?
Mhm. Well, ahead of time as a study session.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that open to the public as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're usually held in here, but it might be, but it'll be an opportunity for some of the staff presentations as well. So Jessica will do a presentation about her program with the teens, and we'll talk about Make X, and we'll talk about, just different things of interest.
So for the circulation, we know that we have lots of books and other materials. Maybe there's some time they would decide if they want to keep it or withdraw them. May we know how they decide, make a decision to keep it or withdraw them? If they decide to withdraw those collections, usually what they would do with these things they decide to withdraw. Will they make digital copy for the things that they're going to withdraw, or they just withdraw? Why I have this question is because some of my friends talk to me, they say that they complain actually. A few years ago, they found very good books in the library, and a few years later, she tried to find that book. She was not able to. But from her point of view, that was a very good book for children. So it just let me wonder, what's the criteria for a library to withdraw books? And is it possible, if we want to withdraw the book because of the space, or because it's hard to maintain the book, or some other reasons, but is it possible that we can make digital copy of these books? So someday, if people want to find a book, probably we don't have the real book, but we have the digital copy, so people can find the book they really love. Is it possible?
So you want to prepare a report about this, or you want me just to answer the question now?
So,
I mean, this could be under Commissioner questions, I guess.
I think if one of your managers, they would prepare reports, could they include this part, so we would have a better idea of how they're doing this?
Sure, we've reviewed this in the past. There is a collection development policy, which includes weeding as one of the things on there. And I can, would you like me to add this to the agenda, or, or I'm happy to meet with you unless everyone else is interested, because there is a very, there is a process and there is a policy related to that. And we don't digitize. I can quickly tell you this. We don't have the equipment. It's not that simple. It's also often a violation of copyright for depending on what we intend to do with it. The internet, we do have digital resources that we access that do take on that outside of the regular ebooks. So the Internet Archive, or there is a resource that does this for a fee. And then they maintain it. It's not us, but we have access to it because it's free. So there are opportunities for that. And then we have ways of, the Friends of the Library want specific books that they will resell. They don't want fiction. Fiction doesn't resell. Things like that. So we have ways of, the Art Center now wants books for projects, and we recycle. But even, during times where we've had a lot of materials to weed, the recycling center didn't want them anymore because we had, they didn't have the capability of recycling everything that we had. So we've looked for as many options as we can to make sure that we can make them available should other people want them. But we can, the collection development policy is available online in the library policies about the library, and we can certainly have a report about the process of removing items and how that's handled.
Okay, please. Thank you.
Actually, maybe say that we table that not from our December meeting, but move it to our February, because I really think it's important to allow staff to focus on Mitchell Park. I might ask that.
Yeah, I agree that it can wait a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't think we've actually reviewed that particular policy. And
Yeah,
did we?
when Ned was here,
Did
that
we?
was approved.
Well, okay, it must have been a while. I don't remember that specific one. I do remember the meeting room one. And as always, unless there's any other agenda items, as always, they can be suggested offline to Evelyn, and then we'll come up with the actual agenda before the next meeting. So, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned.